Good morning again, y'all. This is Ron. It is a little after 11 on Sunday morning, so we will get started, okay? Uh, First of all, on yesterday, we had a really in depth discussion looking at Enoch and him walking with God and God taking him. And we tried to gain some understanding of that. And Pastor asked us a question yesterday about that, and it kind of took us to a different place. Uh, I would say mentally and spiritually,
Yes.
and that's sort of where we were on yesterday. So, uh, any thoughts, feeling that? What you think about that? You've had time to kind of mull it over a little bit. Uh, any additional thoughts and feelings there? I did had the feeling on yesterday that we weren't quite done with that. So, anyone want to start us off? What are your thoughts? Well, I tell you what, then I will get the ball rolling. I have a question, and Pastor uh, talked about it, and I felt better about it. It was I guess something I said yesterday that kind of prompted the discussion. I can't remember. It may have been about, but my response was that I wondered. I had always wondered if his actions were selfish, and and what I meant by that is I always have seen mankind as being one unit, if you look at it spiritually. And what did his leaving, I understand, but him being taken, how does that advance man? And that that was my thoughts on that. So if I can, I just for sake of clarity, ask Pastor that again to go over that portion of. So I'll be
This,
clear on that.
Ron, this is Ramel. You're breaking up.
I am.
Yes, you are. It's kind of like we're missing the last. If you go back over maybe the last thought you had.
Okay. Okay. I tell you what then,
No.
Pastor.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
I tell you what, if you don't mind, I'm going to change rooms. I'm gonna get my stuff and change to a different room. But just answer, get the ball rolling for me. What did Enoch do again to advance mankind? If you start with that, a couple minutes, and I'll move to a different room.
Okay. Um, Good morning, everyone. I I see Enoch as being pivotal in that his story, excuse me, his story or the concept is more about being an example as to what we are capable of, and an example of one becoming what they were created to be, in that he had um, journeyed to a place of enlightenment that resulted in him being removed from this material world. And I see that as part of the story that is being told. The Enoch story ended with Jesus, or was finished with Jesus, I should say. I see Jesus as being also an example of who we are created to be, but not only being that example, but teaching us what that example looks like. And just as Enoch left, so did Jesus. The difference is that Enoch was no more, and Jesus was crucified. And in his crucifixion, he showed us something. Not only are we able to be who we were created to be, but we are also able to leave this earth and return to it in the body that we left with, not in, but with. Jesus showed us that we can be manifested into the physical world even after we are taken out of this the body. And now where we are is in the process of traveling the same journey as did Enoch and Jesus in terms of their conceptual travels. In conjunction with what Rainier talked about yesterday, I see a precursor to being as Enoch was also, even though it's not sequential in terms of the way the stories are told. I see the precursor to that as being able to understand that whether it's Abraham or Moses, Jacob or Esau, all of these are different layers of our lives. And when we look at each of the layers of our lives, what do we see? We see aspects of humanity that have both light and darkness, ripeness and unripeness. But at the same time, we see those characters traveling on a journey, seeking something different than what they perceive themselves to be. And in some cases, it's enlightenment, and in some cases, it's selfishness. However, the journey is traveled, and once we get to that place where we began to understand who we are, when we look back at who we thought we were, that does not exist anymore. So it is also in that regard that we become as Jesus and as Enoch was, and in doing so, we see that and let me give you an example. The person that I was when I first entered ministry, I'm not that person anymore. The person I was prior to entering ministry, the political theologue, I'm not that person anymore. I am me in terms of being, making every effort to be the person I was created to be. However, in order for me to get to this place, I had to travel through the journey of the material world, be it deemed politics, academics, or whatever. I had to travel that journey of the material world to get to the spiritual space that I occupy now. And I do believe that each of us have to do the same thing. And where we are in this spiritual world and how we exit it or continue to live in it is determined by the depth of our commitment, the depth of our dedication to our desires. Thank you. I hope that helps. Questions, comments?
Thank you. You asked. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is Charles. So,
Hey, Charles.
your journey that you go through in life, those things is to mold you, shape you, and build you until you understand what God be trying to tell you or what you're trying to see in your life.
Yes. When we come into this earth, we are spiritual beings with sights, with insight rather, that we lose as we adjust to this material world. And in doing so, we have to travel the journey through this material world before we actually find ourselves. Some people never do it, and some people do. There are some who enter this world who really don't have much of a choice when it comes to traveling the journey to find themselves. It happens without without them having to be pushed too hard to get them to that place. Does that help you, Charles?
Yes, it did.
All right, thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else? Any questions, comments? Even the question was on yesterday, if one of us, and I think everybody took it personally, which understandably so, yeah. If one of us had the opportunity or to leave here, such as Enoch did, how would you feel? How would you feel about that? And I think that was, at least for me, a very sobering question. And so, are there any other thoughts on that, or have you had time to mull it over? Those who may have a comment, even if you spoke on it yesterday.
Good morning. This is Kathy. I want to go back to what Pastor said just now about
Okay.
how we exit. And he gave the example of Enoch walking and walking no more. And then he talked about Jesus and how Jesus came back to in the form of the body in which he left. And we've talked about the ancestors and how they go before us now and encourage us. So the work never is finished. I understand that part. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is, does the universe determine whether or not you need to re-enter in that body to come back and do something else? Or because we're coming to the understanding that we've always understood that energy life doesn't end, it just changes form. But I guess I'm trying to understand who or what or how is it determined that you need to re-enter the body to come back?
Okay. In the case of Jesus, what you see is he was sent into this earth to teach. And even his death was a lesson. The crucifixion was a lesson. The things that happened to him prior to him being crucified were a lesson to us as well. And the primary lesson to me was his return in bodily form. That was determined by the universe. The universe, or our creator, is the one who brought him into this earth to be who he was as a teacher. And that was also the determining factor in his manifestation in the body that he left with. In the case of Enoch, it says that he walked with God and he was no more, which means that the Creator also made that determination based upon Enoch's dedication and desires to be one with or to be as he was created to be. And honestly There are times I believe that Enoch did become who he was created to be, but there are times I believe that his desire to be who he was created to be was of such depths until it was counted as righteous enlightenment, and he was no more. Either way, the determining factor is your desire coupled with the direction that you're guided in by our Creator. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, and yeah, you're welcome. In the case of our ancestors are energy forces that guide us regardless of whether we listen. The efforts are there to guide us. That is one of the reasons you hear a lot of us, especially African people, say that boy been here before. He's just like his great granddad, et cetera, et cetera. He says the same things, his mannerisms are the same. That same energy that was that the previous generation had, or that energy it shows up in subsequent births. And it is my contention that the reason it does is because there were some things that needed to be done in this generation that was not done in the previous generation, because the setting was not there for it to be understood, accepted, or embraced. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Say,
Okay.
So then,
Thanks.
I'm sorry, go ahead, y'all. Whoever is going next.
this is Vermel. So that is what you mean when you say you come back to the body? Some of us may come back to the body.
You don't come back to the body, you come back in the body or with the body.
Okay. So that's what you mean by it. You may come back in another generation, or
let me give you an example.
okay.
When let me start with my boys. The older people, males in my family, every one of them, for some reason, crossed their legs the same way the older they got. And right now, the grandboys who's like 8 years old do the same thing. And your mother was laughing at me yesterday because I was sitting there reading, my legs were crossed, and she said, "That's where the boys get that from you, because they cross their legs like an old man." I guess, I don't know. But that is simple, but yet is real. My mannerisms, I never lived in the presence of my daddy, ever. However, my mannerisms are like his. Why? And according to my first cousins, not only are my features like my great granddaddy, unlike my granddad on my daddy's side, but they're also like that on my mom's side. And my mannerisms are like both of them, even though both of them are different. My desire is to reach out to help people can be found on both sides of the family as well. It's almost like I am a mixture of all of them. And yet it takes that and I use this word mixture because don't have a better word right now anyway. And it takes all of that to make me the person I am, yet there are different aspects of me that I gained from them and still live that way because of the energy forces. It's more than, and hear me very, very clearly, our existence in being reflective of those who were here prior to us is more than physical genetics. There are spiritual genetics that play as well. And if we are, excuse me, if we are mindful of what we see, we will see those spiritual genetics at play in the lives of those around us if we choose to. And that's what I mean, Vermel, when I'm talking about coming back with the body. Is not so much the body that I'm in as much as it is the energy that keeps the body alive, because the energy that keeps it alive is a combination of forces from several different people who walked this earth. My grandmama, my mentor, Graham Hawkins, all of these people with whom I had interactions can be identified in my personality. I hope that helps. I hope I'm not rambling. Thank you.
You're not rambling. It makes very good sense to me. Thank you.
And I have my questions are along the same line, Pastor, and you can continue in your explanation with this if this is the same thing. I was trying to find it right quick, and it's in Matthew somewhere, I think, where Jesus comes back as Elijah, and he even asked the disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" So it does not meet. If you look at it from the perspective of Elijah, his spirit comes back, but in a different body. So that sort of, you using the example of relatives, but can that also be along those same lines, is what I'm asking.
Yes, yes. Jeremiah, Elijah, the response of the disciples were simply saying, some say you Elijah, some say you Jeremiah, some say you Isaiah. Why? Because the attributes, the personality traits that Jesus
Sage?
Yeah, must have dropped us.
Oh, here I am. I'm sorry. Did you hear anything I said?
No,
No.
sir. Can you start forth, please?
Yeah, I said that if we look at the one Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Elisha, when Jesus raised that question, that was the response of the disciples as to who he is. If we look at those, we would see that Jesus manifested what the meanings of those names are. What does Isaiah mean? What does Jeremiah mean? What does Elisha mean? We will see those traits in Jesus. So that is the same thing that I was talking about, absolutely. However, I do believe that what they mean, and the disciples were saying to Jesus, was referencing the prophets because they were familiar with the prophets. What I'm referencing is not so much the prophets that we are familiar with as is the people who influence our lives in a very spiritual manner. Now, and don't get me wrong, I do understand that people have influences that are material as well. However, the dominant influences in my life in particular were those of spirituality as opposed to being material. Does that help, Ron?
Yes, sir. Yes, it does. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Are there
Go ahead, Pastor.
No, I was just simply asking if there are further questions on about this.
Maybe it's an over outside. It's you're dropping in and out on us.
That's probably me and the way that I'm speaking, because I think I'm very clear now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay. My question was, are there further questions about this or anything else in that regard? Or for that matter, anything, period?
Pastor, I have a question, but I don't want to take us too far from where we are now, and it is in the same line.
Don't finish
But-
that statement. Don't even finish that statement. Just ask the question because you can't take us too far. Everything is interlinked.
Okay. We've spent time looking at when an enlightened man walks no more, when he leaves the earth, and what that energy does and what it looks like, and getting an understanding of that. But my question, and this, I started thinking about this yesterday, and I know this is a scripture that we probably have very little understanding, and I hope we can shed some light on it. But when the scripture, and I hope I'm saying his name right because I haven't pulled the scripture to look at it, but it talks about Davy, these lifting up his eyes in hell, saying, tell my brothers they don't want to come here. So I think this started me to thinking with the conversation that we had yesterday. And I really believe we're debunking all of these religious things, the dogma that we've been taught and all of that stuff. But I'm trying to kind of look at what do we glean from when a man who does not know who he is, who did not take the journey into self-discovery to be I am, is that an example of what his journey looks like? Does that question, do you understand what I'm asking? Does that make any sense?
I'm familiar with the scripture. If someone can find that scripture, I'd appreciate it while as I respond to this. And I have a reason for asking that. However, I do understand what you're saying in regards to David having died and gone to hell. There's more to that story. It starts with the wealthy man and the poor man, and David is being one of those who lifts up his eyes in hell, means that he finds himself in a place of torment, and he says that I want to tell my brothers, don't do the same things that I have done, because I don't want them to be find themselves in torment as I am. And the response was, even if you were to go to them, they will not listen to you. I've always had struggles with embracing that as being what we were taught it was. Even before I ever entered ministry, or even afterwards, during the depth of my attempts to understand the scriptures, my efforts never led me to a place to embrace what I had been taught about that. It's no different than everything else, parable / allegory. I believe that this is talking about regardless of how much you go to those you love and speak to them about the torment that you've gone through, and making them aware of the availability of peace and harmony that will not deter them from the journey that they are on, because they will not accept what you are saying. If we really think about our structures in terms of our family structures, we began to see that it is a lot easier for us to say to someone, man, I have been through hell, and let me tell you what happened to me. And it did not change until blah, 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 blah. There are people who do not know us, have not grown up with us, who are more apt to embrace what we are telling them than would be our siblings or our family members. I believe it's speaking more to that than it is to somebody lifting up their eyes in a physical hell or a spiritual hell in terms of what we have been taught that hell is. Why do I make that determination? Because if we look at the book of Revelations, we find that it explicitly says that death and hell are cast into the lake of fire. And if we look at the lake of fire, it speaks to a place of repose, a place where purification takes place. And if death and hell are cast into this lake of fire, it is not for the purpose of continuously tormenting anyone. It is for the purpose of purifying death and hell, meaning that the fear of death is taken away. The unhealthy understanding that we have been taught and have embraced about death is being taken away, and the truth of death is being revealed. The dross has been burned away from it, so you can see what death really is. When it comes to hell, it's talking about all of the adversity that you have encountered because of your decisions and because of decisions of others that have pushed you to the brink and left you in a space that you would prefer not being in because of the pain and suffering that you have endured. This also is being purified, meaning that you are beginning to see that this is not the life that was determined for you. This is a journey that you were to travel through in order to get to the place of righteousness, the place of peace and solace, where you could be expressive of who you were created to be. Does that make?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Because I really was trying to understand, was that supposed to be some type of example? And I didn't believe everything that we've been taught about that, but I wanted you to bring some clarity to it for me. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Are there any other questions about that? Because like I said, I have struggled with that for a lifetime. Mr. Ron?
Yes, sir. Anyone? Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay.
Ron, let me see if I can raise something else about this.
Okay.
We are at a turning point. We are at a fork in the road. The journey that we are traveling is in search of enlightenment. And right now, the determining factor is more about the depth of commitment than it is about the surface desires, so we would know, so we will understand something. The difference is that surface desire will give you light, will give you enlightenment. The depth of our desires to move beyond where we are not only give you enlightenment, you become the enlightenment that you desire to understand. With that comes tremendous responsibility, but also with that comes a sense of verbal commitment, I suppose, for lack of a better phrase. What I mean by verbal commitment is, are you willing to give up everything, all your desires, all your ambitions, your free will, however you want to term it, your life, your interactions with family, friends, etc. Are you willing to give up every single bit of that and whatever else it takes in order for you to continue this journey as the Creator seeks to guide you, as opposed to what you are looking for? Because in reality, you have no clue as to what you're looking for, because if you did, you would have already found it. Are you willing to blindly travel this journey, trusting with every step of the way that the Creator is guiding you, no matter what pitfalls you encounter, no matter how dark it gets along the way? Are you willing to hold to what you believe is happening in terms of your Creator guiding you? I suppose the meat of the question is, what is the depth of your commitment? What are you willing to walk away from? Because if you can, let me ask it this way before I go further. Ask yourself, what are you willing to walk away from? What are you willing to give up in order for you to continue this journey in earnest, not knowing where you're going, not being able to see your way at times, and not being able to understand what's being said or what's being shown to you? Are you willing? What are you willing to walk away from in order to travel this journey of unknowing? And that is not rhetorical. If it's everything, fine. If it's not, it's fine. But I want you to ask yourself that. And then it is my desire to hear from you in response to what are the questions that I'm raising. Thank you. And I hope someone is ready to respond. I'm still here. Questions, comments? Or is that too much to ask?
It's not too much to ask. I think the first thing pops in your mind is, I would give up everything. And we've been here before, not quite like this, but we've been here before, and what you see is you don't always know what everything is. So it's an easy answer until that thing pops up that you may not have been quite aware of or had forgotten about or whatever. But the easy answer is we've come too far to turn around. We've come too far to go searching for something else. And we, I think, know that even the things that we've experienced in the past don't hold a candle to where we are now. So what reward is there to go back to? But, you know,
That's-
you I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ron, let me speak. That's your assessment, and I agree with your assessment 100%. However, I agree with that assessment for you. I can say the same thing that you're saying. My question is, are the others, however many there are, engaged in this discussion today, how many of you have made that same commitment that Ron has made and are willing to stick to it? And if you say that you have, then what is it that you are willing to give up in order to maintain this commitment, this dedication, these desires? Maybe I should have been a little bit clearer. So is that, you understand what I'm saying, Ron?
Yes, sir, I do.
So I wanted to ask that in that way, because I have something to say on the other end of this. However, I would like to get some feedback, please.
This is Barbara. The answer to that is the same as the answer to what we were talking about yesterday. It means that for me, I'm willing to give up all of this physical stuff if it means being able to be the Elohim that I am. I mean, that's what it means to me. And everything tied to the physical.
Thank you.
This is Vermel. For me, there isn't anything to go back to, but I think what I'd have to give up is the fear of the unknown. Even though there's a part of me that doesn't feel like I need to know it before I know it, but I think it's the fear of the unknown.
Are there any others who are, I'm sorry,
No, that's it.
and I was going to ask, on the heels of what you just said, are there others who are afraid of the unknown? If so, let's talk about that for a moment. If don't be ashamed. If you're afraid of the unknown, so you're afraid of the unknown.
Pastor,
Some of us, yes.
Pastor, this is Teresa. I understand everything that you're saying because especially when you hit home on the family, when you can tell them about all the hell you've been through and they don't change their course or believe what it is that you say. So I'm walking in that path and I'm not looking back. That's just my comment.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone who is afraid of the unknown?
This is Valerie. Yes, that is me. I am afraid of the unknown.
Thank you. I was about to say, if you don't want to identify yourself, you don't have to. Just if you're afraid of the unknown, just say you are. If not, you're not. And I want to talk about that for a moment after we see if you're there. Okay, Valerie Rehal. Anyone else? And
Well, I'm afraid of the unknown, but I'm willing to take the chance.
Same here, Pastor. I am too.
Well, this is Richard, and I guess I'd say it a little differently from myself. Because of some experiences, direct or indirect, I wouldn't use the word fear. I'd say some anxiety. Now, if that's a lesser degree of fear, and it's something that comes and goes. There are times when I'm absolutely not, and there are other times when I might be.
thank you, sir.
Pastor, I kind of agree with Mr. Richard. It doesn't feel like a fear. It feels like more so if it needs to be, let it be, but I don't know if I'm ready. That makes sense?
It does, because that's how you feel. Of course, it makes sense. Anyone else?
Again, I don't know if this helps a little bit, but this makes me think of, if I can remember correctly, and there's a good chance that I'm not quite. There's a tradition in Hinduism that, let's say, the stage of life that I'm in, I don't know how many on the phone are at that stage, I'm 76. And it tends to be traditionally more male than female, but more recently, it's both. People, to a certain extent, say goodbye to their families and go on a spiritual quest. Now, I guess I always like this word trick. The trick is they're not abandoning emotionally. The connection is there, but they're asking for the freedom to pursue this course. And that's a sense I would have in this too. I care very deeply about my family, and this isn't a decision that I would sit in a room alone and make. I want to involve them because, and it might be a struggle for them, or it might bring some enlightenment to them too. But I mean, that's how I would see proceeding with all this.
Thanks again, Mr. Richard. Anyone else?
I'm thinking with myself, I'm at a fork of the road, and now it's the time to make a decision, is if I'm ready to go right or if I'm ready to go left. And that's
Okay, Mr.
and that's
Go
a
ahead.
decision is hard.
Okay, Mr. Charles. Thank you. Anyone else?
I guess for me, if it helps too, I wouldn't use the language of fork, left or right. It's more, am I ready to embrace the nature of the journey changing and pursue that?
Oh, okay. Are there any others before I offer what I'm beginning. Why would this question be answered now? On the heels of raising the question about being accepting of the opportunity to leave as did Enoch. First of all, I do believe that when Richard said that the anxieties, he would use the word anxiety rather than the word fear because it's less, it's a type of fear that's less intense. Let's use the word fear, I guess. Am I right, Richard? Or am I putting words in?
I think fear can have a freezing effect or seriously make you want to run away or hold back. And anxiety is almost like any number of times in my life, whether they've been activities or events I sought. I just went through a series of physical examinations for which I had some anxiety leading up to the exam. And once it was in front of me, it faded away. On another sense, rather superficially or amusingly, every time I ran a race when I was running track all those years ago, there was anxiety before the race. But when I got into what it took to be ready to run, that faded away. That's kind of what I'm saying. So I was ultimately seeking to embrace it, but there's a hesitancy, there's a mix of whatever, because I'm not perfectly ready, but I'm ready enough, if that helps explain it.
It does. It helps. It does. Our willingness to give up everything, inclusive of our lives or our aspirations for our lives and the lives of others in our orbit, oftentimes are determined by our environmental upbringing. In the case of spirituality, I see it a bit differently than I would other things that I would embrace and give up other aspects of my life. Spiritually, the commitment that I have made, I did not do it in conjunction with any individual, be it Phoebe, children, etc. I did not make that decision in conjunction with anyone other than me. And that on the surface may sound selfish. However, it is far from being selfish, because my commitment was based upon my desire to enhance harmony with humanity. And whether my mama, my siblings, my children, my wife, my friends, whether any of them accepted that or not, quite frankly, was not important at all. And the reason it wasn't important at all is because in order for them to, in order for me to embrace the importance of their input, they would have to understand what I'm committing myself to, and that is not necessarily something they would understand or embrace. And the reason I say it wasn't important is because my embracing at all costs this journey was beneficial, not just to all of humanity in terms of those I've never met in my life, but it's also beneficial to those in my orbit, be it my family inside of my household or extended family, as biologically speaking, also my extended family, you guys and others. The commitment to travel the spiritual journey is a commitment different than any commitment that you will ever make in your life. If I make it a commitment, I'll give you an example. The last time that I graduated from college, I had a scholarship to go to the University of Kentucky to get a master's degree in public health administration. And when I weighed the effect that it was going to have on my family structure, as well as the congregations that I was serving at that time, I chose not to do it because it had nothing to do with my spiritual journey. Of course, I didn't understand the journey as I do now. So I chose not to do it. However, when I made this unwavering commitment to travel this spiritual journey, the effect on family and those around me was different. It was not material, it was spiritual. And everything that is spiritual, everything that is truth is beneficial to those around me, even if they reject it or reject me for that matter. My commitment is bigger than that because it has a positive effect on a larger group, meaning the whole of humanity. Even though it took some wrestling for me to embrace that I could affect every human on this earth, it happened because of that commitment. I would, excuse me, the decision to make that commitment came with a lot of other factors. Maybe it was easier for me to do that without fear and actually without, with very little anxiety. Because fear is something that I had not experienced. Out of all the times that I have faced death, it has never frightened me. And when I saw the reality of spirituality, when I saw the necessity of spiritual commitment for the benefit of humanity, none of that frightened me. I was more frightened or had more anxiety, excuse me, about voicing what I had been shown in relationship to leading others on this journey. And my anxiety about that was not that I could not do it or should not do it. My anxiety about that was more selfish, I guess, than anything else, because I did not want anyone to think that I'm doing what I'm doing out of ego. That's dangerous. I wanted everyone to see that this is out of commitment to humanity. It has nothing to do with me soothing an ego. It has everything to do with bringing balance to humanity and saving humanity from itself. So when I talk about, I raise the question, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to walk away from? what you're actually giving up and what you're actually walking away from is absolutely nothing. It looks as though it's something. You're gaining everything because those things that we enumerate as being material, religious, political, etc. Those things are nothing, non-existent in comparison to the spiritual essence of our being and the journey that it takes in order for us to be able to not only embrace, but to articulate what our experience, our spiritual experiences are, and our spiritual desires are for humanity. When we think about it, the material world that we walk away from is more about possessions than it is a processional to the gateway that leads us to this journey that we're on. What I saw quite early in this journey was, and some of you have heard me say this many times, for me to be isolated for me to be isolated with men is for me to be insulated from God. For me to be isolated with God is to be insulated from men, which means that for me to be in this space with my Creator, that insulates me from the religious / academic / seminarian thoughts of theology, or of scripture, of religiosity. All these things I'm isolated from those things. And the isolation from them doesn't mean I don't see them. It doesn't mean I don't have empathy for those who are involved in it. It doesn't mean that I'm cleansed of all of those things. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that I'm more capable of taking an objective look at it and more open to the universe speaking to my soul so that I can articulate what the universe is speaking to all of humanity. And that isolation does not isolate me from people. It isolates me from man, the thoughts of man, the manipulation of men, the idea of the philosophizing of religion itself. Of the scriptures themselves, isolated from those things, so that I can, with a clear eye, see that carrying the burden for humanity is not a burden of labor as much as it is a burden of love. The heaviness of it does not break my back. The heaviness of it breaks my heart. So when I talk about walking away from those terms, simply says that I have chosen to see with my eye, observe with my eyes, but see with my eye. I observe what I see with my eyes. However, I see with my eye, meaning that I am able to see the spiritual essence of what I am viewing with my material eyes. I'm able to see what the signs of the times are saying to humanity. Because I am actually being analytical with the eye instead of my mind or my eyes. Therefore, when there is, or if there is anxiety, it doesn't last but a split second, because I know the depth of the commitment, even though I don't know what that commitment is going to bring before me, other than what I have seen in the past. I have been on the brink of bankruptcy and still didn't change. I have been on the brink of being super wealthy and walked away from it because it did not feel right. It did not fit what I was seeing with my eye. I have been on the brink of popularity, the notoriety, all of those things, and walked away from them because it doesn't fit with who I am and the journey that I'm on. And I'm saying to you that those things that I have been approached with, you are being approached with the same things, maybe in different ways, but you are being approached with them. The question is, do you compromise who you are in order to get along with those around you? Do you compromise what you have committed to in order for you to be accepted, in order for you to feel like you're somebody, in order for you to attain a goal that you have set for yourself, as opposed to the goal that you supposedly have left in the hands of the universe? Where are you in regards to this? And the you of whom I speak is not collective right now, because we cannot be collective until we be honest about who we are and what our commitments are individually. We have to deal with the internal me before we can be connected to the external us and become the internal us. Our coupling together started with an external coupling, meaning that we were friends and still are. We were we were challenging to each other and still are. But all of these things that appear to be external, and in many cases were, are the things that brought us to this place of unicity, where there is no way to explain how much we love each other. There is no way to express the depth of our commitment to humanity, because of the choice we have made, not choices, the choice that we have made. The single choice has to be whatever it takes, without compromise, whatever it takes. You really don't have anyone or anything unless you are willing to let it go. If you are not willing to let it go, that means it has you. You think you possess it, but it possesses you. I desire for the very thing that I traveled this journey looking for to apprehend me and allow this eye to be clearer than it's ever been, so that humanity can be the true beneficiary of that single choice that has been made to bring humanity from the depths of barbarity to the height of godliness, meaning the height of being who it was created to be, Elohim, having a physical experience. And Jesus showed us that. When Jesus returned in that body after having been crucified, Jesus was the true essence of Elohim having a physical experience. And that is the reason he could be in Emmaus at one moment and in Jerusalem at the next second. Because he was truly Elohim, having a physical experience. And he was afforded that because without compromise, he singularly traveled the journey and did the work that he sought to do based upon understanding his purpose for being in this earth. And that purpose is the same as ours, to bring humanity to a place of understanding so that we can truly be one and not be fractured based on race and economics and social and all the other things. Thank you. Questions or comments?
Well, for me, on the surface, it's a lot to absorb, but then on the other hand, I hear you. I do. I hear you. I wouldn't use the word isolation, but each of us would say things differently. I would just say letting go of the connection so that there's no energy or power involved in that, because the events of your past are there, but they don't have to still be, so you don't have to be chained to them. So if what you're saying is, the truth is, you're not really giving up anything, losing anything. It's all gain. Now, it may cause some turbulence in relationships in your life, but that's because those relationships, and I don't say this in a judgmental way, had impurities in them, if you want. So they don't have to be cast away so much as some energy may have to be spent dealing with them. So for all the parties involved, there's no, what's the word, angst, no fear, no that. Anyway, so that's the way I would initially interpret understand what you said. But of course, it's a lot to sit with, to let absorb through you. Or I don't know how to say it that way. I mean, just let it come. Yeah, okay. That's my take, reaction, not take.
Thank you.
But also, I guess if I had one comment or question, and I guess I can never be quiet when I get started. Even the whole notion of doing it for humanity kind of fades a bit to me, because it's all one thing. We're back to if you can do it in yourself, you're doing it with or to humanity, right?
If that commitment is for humanity, yes, because you can do the same thing with the commitment to this material world and end up like Jeff Bezos, filthy rich and not caring about anybody except yourself, or like Elon Musk.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to let it be interpreted that way. I meant if you really are on a spiritual awakening awareness journey, all of that merges anyway. So the concept of self is morphing, is changing.
Gotcha.
Right.
Pastor Ron, I appreciate what you said all in every detail. If I can just speak to my journey a little bit, mine's different than yours, of course. You and I have talked in the past, and I mentioned to you when I was a little boy, and I mean a little boy before school, and I used to sit on the porch and wait on my brother to get off the bus. I sit there and talk to God, and I knew then there was something in me that God was going to show me. Didn't know what that meant, but I knew there was something there. And that has been with me all of my life. And my questions were the what ifs and the why. Why is this? Why is that? And one question I remember quite, almost word for word. And like I say, this was before I was 6 years old. But I remember asking God, why do Black people struggle so much? Why are we the way we are? Why do we seem to be so different? And, it wasn't something I forgot. But as life went on, the Creator allowed me to do just about anything I wanted to do. As far as, that's what I related to Solomon so well, the journey that he took, but the whole time observing life and what does this mean? What does that mean? And where is the pleasure here? Where is the satisfaction? Until I turned to hear the voice. The big discovery for me was, and I think this was different from you because you were a minister and you could see the masses, you could see other people. And religion that I had always known was you were trying to find salvation for yourself. I never knew or felt that it was attached to everybody else until I began this journey with Greater New Faith and the people on this phone, and things start to be revealed to me and fall into place. And even then, the thing that I battled with, and this is what kept me from seeing the Elohim part, was why me? Why would God choose me? Why would I be in this place? But it was, going back to, if I can borrow what S taught about 8 cents, I kept going back through my journey and the sitting on the porch and knowing that one day I would make that turn and be in this thing 100%. That was always my goal. And so, yeah, I took some turns and did some stuff, but I knew once I made the decision, I would be there. And there was nothing else to go back to, as there is a too much pleasure that I haven't tried that, that God didn't allow me to look at and then see, okay, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. So when you originally, some years ago, talked about what are you willing to give up? You asked this question several years ago while we were still on Main Street. And that started me pondering that, because that was a serious question. And at the time, I did not answer it at all because I always thought there were consequences to not taking that seriously. So you better not say anything rather than make a commitment and not be fully engaged. So it was something that I have cautiously approached. And I think where I am now is the question has already captured me rather than me having to just, and I have come out and said it, but it's you turn around and look at where you are and your decisions and following your path, and you see that it's too late. You're here. You're right at that place where that scared you a few years ago, but you're there now. And as far as fears, I don't have a lot of material things now. I don't have status, as far as being this or that to people. And some very close people have, in my family and in other families that I've been close to, have left here, and that has caused pain. So my thing is, there's not a whole lot that I can probably go through now. And I say that with the thought of I not knowing what I don't know, but being willing to accept it based on those experiences. I've been through a lot, and if I have to go through a lot more, I feel equipped to deal with it. But I'm on the journey, I'm committed to the journey, and I'm not looking back on it. So that's my answer to it. I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Pastor and everyone, can you hear me?
Would you speak louder, please?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, you better.
Sorry. Well, anyway, I hopefully you can hear me. But again, I guess this is George, from Philly. I think that our perception in terms of what we hear is deeply intimate in terms of where we are, and at the same time, I can only speak for myself in this situation. But my perception is one that we are hearing, what is being put out in the macro, and we're hearing it, with our ears. But I think that it even goes much deeper in terms of hearing it in our third ear. And what I'm hearing, is where some of us have been, where we have given up, the traditions of the doctrines, tradition of religion, and we're at that place, or I know I'm at that place where, I have given up, and I'm, want to walk in understanding of truth. And so it's more for me now to hear it with my third ear. And I think that, again, it resonates, and I'm just blessed to be in this place and time, to be able to move, with the Spirit, and not fulfilling the lust of the flesh or material things. So I think that, again, just taking it all in, and just, being able to tap into the Spirit within and to move forward. So I really appreciate, just what's being, mentioned and taught today, where we can truly grasp it in our spirit. But I'm really just trying to appreciate that third ear, Pastor, because it's really putting in the macro that I think all of us, are pondering, all of us are deeply seeking, with our whole heart. So I appreciate, again, this time of just being in oneness with everyone. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, George. I'll probably add one more thing, then we'll be done. But first, I want to see if there's one else. Okay. This is what I want to add to that is I spoke of the the rudiments of commitment that I experienced, you know, in ministry when I entered ministry and started making this commitment. However, I want us to know that our journey starts before we even look at or question what spiritual. What triggered this is part of what Ron said about being less than 6, sitting on the porch talking to God. I remember being very active in church, teaching adults classes and Sunday school when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old, and having been chosen to do that. And at school, it was something different. I was accepted in the church, but at school, and sometimes with my siblings, things were a bit cruel because with my siblings, they called me bookworm, Black Jesus, etc. In school, I suffered hardship because some of the people with whom I befriended were told not to deal with me because I didn't know who my daddy was. I was a bastard. Those things happened to me. Of course, they were addressed by my parents, but the pain from them was not addressed. And those things continued with me through my high school. And I knew that there were some attempts to make sure I failed from some of the instructors that I had because they did not see me as being worthy of having the academic acumen that I did. And when others who were teacher kids or who were from a 2-parent home were not academically inclined as I. So I do believe also that those types of struggles and pain help mold who I am and strengthen my resolve to be there for people who are hurting, to be there for those who need to be encouraged and uplifted. Long before there was any entrance into any type of spiritual ministry, the pain and suffering brought out of me spiritual attributes that I did not recognize as spiritual attributes until I was much older and much more deeply involved in understanding spirituality. The embarrassment of it came first. The pain of it came. And then from the pain of it, I made efforts to heal myself because I understood something as I got older, that I played no part in my being born. And if I were not, as my grandmama always told me this, if you were not supposed to be on this earth, you wouldn't be here. God brought you here for a reason. Everyone is brought to this earth for a reason. And then I began to see something. My pain was not only helping me, but it was healing others. Because I saw so many people in a 2-parent home who was living bastardized lives. No love, no commitment, but pretentious all the way. So I say this to say to you, do not be ashamed of where you came from. Do not be ashamed of your experiences in this earth, your hardships, your pains, your sorrows. Make all of them become your strengths by recognizing that they were calisthenics for your emotions. And as a result of them, you're emotionally stronger when it comes to rendering aid to those who need you, but you're also emotional stronger when there are attempts to ridicule you for what you believe and to ridicule you because you think outside of the box, to tear you down because they do not think that you're worthy to know what you know or to be who you are. Hold on to the truth that you are Elohim. And regardless of how you see yourself in the mirror, it doesn't change that you are Elohim. And all of the hardship that you're faced in life have guided you to this place, not a place of redemption, because you had nothing to be redeemed from, but just guided you to a place of acceptance as to who you are and whose you are. Thank you. I'm done for the day. Any other questions or comments in regards to anything that has been said today? Ron?
Thank you, sir.
Pastor, in your when we were talking about the last thing before what you were just talking about, dealing with making that commitment, were we willing to give up any and everything to make that journey, make that commitment? And you, towards the end part of what you were saying, and you made a comment about not letting go. If it's that hard for you to let go, and I know this ain't your exact words, that means it's controlling you. It sounds like yet another level of addiction when you put it in that manner. If that's such a thing, to be addicted to individuals, your family. And when I look at it like that, if that is such a thing, that is so deep. In a sense where that's like, is that where you were going? Is that kind of in comparison as to what you were saying?
It's a fair comparison, but I had no thoughts of that, Rika, but I appreciate you bringing that up because it is a type of undercover addiction. It's something that is so subtle and so deeply covered up. I mean, so deep inside of us, covered by so many other variables in our lives until we don't see it as an addiction. But it really can very well be one. And I give an example of that by saying that there are those who are so addicted to people until they allow them to abuse them. There are those who are so addicted to family until it doesn't matter how family treats them. They're going to pretend that they are close. They're going to pretend that nothing is going on that's detrimental to them emotionally or otherwise. We call it abuse, but it is also an addiction. Thank you for bringing that.
Anyone else? Any observations? Another great day. We're at a great place to take a pause. So again, we'll stop right here and give everyone an opportunity to ponder what has been said. And if you will, please, we'll convene tomorrow afternoon at 6 p.m. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And please jot down any thoughts or questions you may have, okay? Have a good day, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.